Hello and welcome back. We are continuing with the subject public sector governance, policy and administration. Today we are going to study stakeholder analysis, which is a subtopic on public policy analysis. We're going to, in studying the stakeholder analysis, we're going to look at the mapping of the political and ideological context, because we know that stakeholder analysis identifies who has a stake in the policy issue, what they want, how powerful they are, and how their interests and beliefs will shape the policy's fate. So mapping the political and ideological context adds a layer beyond simply identifying their interests. It asks the question, it asks not just who cares, but also why do they care and what their worldview drives that. So that is stakeholder analysis. And the purpose of stakeholder analysis is to, first of all, anticipate support, anticipate opposition, and also coalition building possibilities. If you are in government and you are part of a team that is trying to develop any policy, you have to do mapping of the stakeholders so that at least you can anticipate support. You need to know where you are going to get support for that policy. You also need to know who may oppose it. That is one reason. Another reason for stakeholder analysis is to identify who controls resources, who controls information, who controls veto power. You understand? Then there is also the purpose of informing engagement and communication strategy. You can only come up with a proper communication strategy if you have done proper mapping of the political and the ideological context. Again, another purpose is to assess political feasibility of the proposed actions. That can help you a lot. Stakeholder analysis can help you to assess political feasibility of the proposed options. And it's also important for us to understand that there are different categories of stakeholders. The first category of stakeholder is what we call primary stakeholders. Primary. Now, who are these primary stakeholders? These are stakeholders who are directly affected by the policy. For example, it could be farmers in an agricultural subsidy policy, and so on. Then there is secondary stakeholders. Secondary stakeholders are indirectly affected over or acting as intermediary. They are either indirectly affected, or they are in the policy process, they are just being affected, or they are just acting as intermediaries. For example, you may have NGOs, people like extension officers, and so on. Then we have key stakeholders. These are the stakeholders who hold significant influence over the outcome, regardless of whether they are directly affected or not. An example could be the National Treasury, it could be the President's office, it could be donor agencies, and so on. Then we have institutional stakeholders. These are formal bodies with an official mandate, like the ministries, government ministries, county governments, regulatory bodies. Those are institutional stakeholders. Then lastly, we have non-institutional. Non-institutional stakeholders. These are stakeholders who are informal, but they are influential actors, like the interest groups, religious bodies, media, ethnic blocs, and so on. So these are 5 categories of stakeholders. Now let's move to mapping. Mapping the political context. Mapping the political context. Mapping the political context. Now, this one goes beyond static positioning. The analysts in carrying out mapping of the political context, the analyst would assess, the analyst here would assess institutional location of power. Institutional location of power. That's the first thing to do. Institutional, need to assess institutional location of power. Institutional location of power. Where does real authority sit? When you are doing mapping of the political context in development of policy, you need to check where the real power sits. It could be at the executive, it could be the legislature, the judiciary, it could be the county versus the national government. So this is what you need to check, institutional location of power. Then there is also the aspect of the electoral cycle timing. Electoral cycle timing. You check, is this an election year? Because policy windows often open or close around elections, right? Around elections. Then number 3 is patronage. You need to assess patronage. Okay, when mapping the political context, you have to assess patronage and rent-seeking networks. And rent-seeking networks. Patronage and rent-seeking networks. You check who benefits materially from the status quo before the policy is implemented, who is currently benefiting from the status quo, and would they resist reform? So that's what you check for when you are doing mapping of the political context. You also check veto players. Veto players. You check veto players. You assess veto players. These are actors whose agreement is necessary for change. Okay? For example, in Kenya, we have the Senate, we have, for example, the Council of Governors or specific parliamentary committees. Number 5, we can mention things like historical ethnic dynamics, historical or ethnic regional dynamics. Historical, ethnic, or regional dynamics. So when studying or mapping the political context, you also need to assess historical, ethnic or regional dynamics. In many African contexts, including Kenya, policy positions can track ethnic regional coalitions as much as formal ideology, and that is very important for realistic feasibility assessment. You understand? Yes. So that is the mapping of the political context. Then there is mapping the ideological context. Mapping ideological context. Candidates, this layer examines the belief systems and worldviews underlying stakeholder positions. If a stakeholder could be primary, secondary, key stakeholder, or institutional stakeholders, they could be holding a certain position. Behind that position, there is a belief system. So when mapping, when carrying out stakeholder analysis, you also need to examine these beliefs. Apart from just the material interest, you need to check, for example, value orientations. What are the value orientations? Value orientations. Value orientations, like the static versus market liberal. It could be individualistic or communitarian. Okay, they could be secular versus religious, conservative framings. You check all that. That is what we are referring to as value orientations. Number two, we have framing battles. Framing battles. Framing battles. You check how competing stakeholders name the problem. There are those who may name the problem illegal, for example, illegal immigration or illegal migration versus refugee crisis. It is just the same phenomenon, but it's named differently. You understand? And there could also be different ideological lens or different policy implications. So when mapping the ideological context, you also check the framing of the battles. 3, discourse coalitions. We may have groups that may differ on some issues, but share a common narrative. You understand? Yeah, they may differ in one area, but there are also areas in which they agree on. 4, we have religious or cultural conditioning. Religious or cultural conditioning, especially relevant in contexts like the faith-based education, health policy, where deeply held beliefs, not just calculated interests, these deeply held beliefs drive resistance or support. So when mapping the ideological context, look at the religious conditioning of people. What are the cultural conditioning of the stakeholders? Then we can also talk of the path dependency of ideas. Path dependency of ideas. The path dependency of ideas, because you have some positions that persist not from current interest, but inherited ideological commitment. For example, a party's founding doctrine may shape its stance or position decades later on. So that can also be a very important area that you need to map when carrying out stakeholder analysis in the ideological context. And that is all, listeners, for today's lesson on stakeholder analysis. In this lesson, we first of all categorized the different types of stakeholders. You have primary stakeholders, secondary stakeholders, key stakeholders, institutional stakeholders, and non-institutional stakeholders. Then we've gone further to learn how we can do mapping, doing stakeholder analysis by mapping the political context and mapping the ideological context. Thank you. God bless you. Bye-bye.